Hello everybody and welcome back to episode 2 of Survive With Me. I think that's what I'm going to call it, I don't know yet. It is the Space Engineers tutorial survival series. So, last episode we got the basic U-shape survival base constructed, which is usually my go-to for this sort of scenario. We've got a wind turbine tower, and we've also done a little bit of mining as well as cannibalizing parts from the pod. So, this episode we're going to get a few things done. So the first one is going to be finding cobalt and also having a look at getting ores in general. The second thing is going to be improving base power, so we actually need power storage so that when we're not using all of the energy the base needs, we can store that power for later use in case we need more than it can provide. And then we're also going to look at making a mining ship to make gathering ores a bit easier for ourselves. So, first things first, ores. So, as we were descending at the start of the last episode, I pointed out that there are white ore patches scattered along the Earth-like planet. They can be different colours depending on the biome and the planet you're on, but in general they're going to be blobs of colours that sort of stick out against the landscape, a bit like these ones over here. So if we fly over to these, with the drill out, the drill has a built-in ore detector. So as you can see here, we're standing on top of the ore patch and we can see that there's nickel and there's magnesium. Now you want to have a good run around because sometimes these are quite spread out, as you can see, and there can be different ores. Usually 3 is the maximum you're going to get, unless you're at a sort of a conjunction of 2 ore patches. So nickel, silicon and magnesium. Then what I like to do is open the inventory, GPS, new from current position. I'll put a tag for the planet we're on, so we're on Earth. And then nickel, silicon and magnesium. You can mark those however you like. I just like to use the, well, what I think are the periodic table, whatever you call them, the denominations, I don't know what they're called, just to mark out so I can keep track of where I've been and where I need to go. So I'm just going to have a little mooch about. What we're looking for is cobalt, so you want to just have a quick look at all the ones which are in the general vicinity of where you landed, and just see if you can find cobalt. We need cobalt for metal grids, which is going to be quite essential for building a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. If you can't find cobalt, don't worry, I'm going to show you what to do in that case as well. I'm going to go have a little mooch around at the mountains and some of these ore patches and we'll see what we can find. So as you can see here, they're sort of like black blotches near the grass, but these are still ore patches. So I'm going to have a little run around. The deeper ores, like gold and silver, won't typically show with your drill. So if you're not seeing anything, it might be because the ores are quite far down. You can increase the range by using a ship, so ore detectors on ships. The large grid one has the largest range. And here on the mountain, as suspected, there is actually cobalt. So we have cobalt, nickel, I did find some iron as well. Looks like we've got cobalt, nickel and iron here. So I'm going to mark these out. And then we've got cobalt, nickel and iron. Now while I'm here, I'm just going to quickly grab some cobalt. It'd be a good idea for you to do the same if you find some. Remember, right click will remove a lot of voxels but won't give you any ores. Here's just a quick view so you can see that cobalt is like this blue colour. Alright, so we're back at the base. We're going to go up to the cargo container. And then, as mentioned, Alt, middle mouse button. Deposit all the components. And if we go into the inventory system, we can see that the refinery has now started refining the cobalt ore. So we've got cobalt ingots. And now we can make our own steel grids. So, that's the best way for now that we can gather cobalt is just going to be by hand. But we won't have to do that for much longer. Next, I'm going to quickly queue up a battery. So a battery will basically store the excess power from the base, as mentioned before. So if we're going to be generating too much power, say there's a windstorm or we're not really using very much juice on the base, we want to just keep that power for later reserves. So I'm going to get a battery built. Doesn't really matter where you put it. I'm probably just going to put it like under this block or under this block. Ideally don't cover up any conveyor ports, so it's probably better to pop it over here. We just need to make sure we've unlocked it, which we have. And then I'm going to grind out this steel block here, and I'm going to put a battery there. And then we're going to right click on it, as we've done before, middle mouse button just to see what we can get out. So we've got a few of the construction components. I don't think we've got much left on this. So then we're going to queue up the rest of the components, put these into production, and then it's just a case of making sure that we've got all the necessary resources to create these. So iron, nickel, silicon, much like the cobalt we just mined, you can hand mine those ores, and it will be more efficient. But if you want to, you can just collect more stone if it's easier. For now though, I'm probably going to go and fly around and get a few ores and then come back. So I'm going to pull up the marker for iron, make sure I've got enough suit charge, make sure I've got enough hydrogen as well. So I am running a bit low, we could do with finding ice soon. But we're not going to be doing hand mining for much longer, so for now it'll do. Obviously it's not sustainable, but it'll do. This is what iron looks like, just so you know for reference. When you're mining you might pick up a bit of stone, so you can just drop that out of your inventory. If you want to get rid of it, you can actually just grind it away, which will get rid of it, but you can also just take it back to base and process it. It's entirely up to you. And here's what nickel looks like, and here's what silicon looks like. Right, so all I've done is I've collected iron, cobalt, nickel and silicon. I've just gone for one run of each, stuck them in the cargo container, and now I'm just going to focus on getting this battery made, and then we'll move on to what we're going to do next. Now you can juggle these around. I recommend putting stone first because it just literally gets refined so quickly, and then probably iron is what you're going to need the most of, with cobalt last. But depending on what components you're trying to produce, you can move these around to speed things up if you need to. Now, I will preface this by saying that once you weld up power cells onto a battery, you will not get those back. So normally you can grind down a block and you'll get 100% of the components back. When you build a battery, it will actually come pre-charged with a bit of energy. But if you grind it down, you won't get those power cells back. So make sure you're happy with where it's at. And then we're going to weld it up. As you can see, it's come with a little bit of charge. And as mentioned, this is going to allow us to just store a bit of excess energy, and it'll also help distribute the energy to the system so everything's nicely powered. Just with one wind turbine, the base will run, but you might notice it cycling every now and then. You might want to move your wind turbine higher. If that is happening, you can check the output if you go to the control panel and the wind turbine, and just see if it's at an optimal output. If it's lower than average, it might be because your base isn't using that much. But if your base is using max power and you've only got the turbine, it's not hitting this output level, you might want to move it up a block or check if something's in the way. So, got the battery built. Next up, I'm just going to build another wind turbine because I think we could do with another turbine powering the base. So I'm going to get a few more steel plates. I'm going to go mine a little bit more iron, so we've got more steel plates as well from that. And then I'm probably just going to extend this out 7 blocks and build another turbine. You can actually stand on top of the wind turbine as well, once you've got the structure in place, save you a bit of jetpack fuel. Whee! And there we go. Now we have good power to the base. We've got 2 wind turbines, which should be plenty for now, plus a battery. So if we open up the control panel on the battery, we can see that it's actually charging, which means we're producing more energy than we're using, which is exactly what we want. Save it for a rainy day. So the base is in good shape now. We're going to focus on getting ores easier, which means converting this into a mining ship. Now, what I said earlier about getting cobalt, if you can't find any, your best bet, in all honesty, is to convert this into a rover. So if you dig out the ground on either side and put wheels on each corner, 2x2s or 3x3s, and then build a cockpit here, or you could even do it with a remote control block. You can drive around and the ship actually has an ore detector on the top here, and that will make it a bit easier for you to find cobalt. Don't flip it, but that's probably one of the better ways to do it. You can also use it as a bit of a helicopter, as it does have 4 thrusters, but they only point up. So you can, if you're a good pilot, you can sort of helicopter yourself around. Splitsy did a good video back in day as well about finding ore, which consisted of attaching a large grid ore detector. I don't really know if it works too well now, but I'll put that in the description of the video. I'll put a link to that video because it sort of taught me when I was playing the game, but I'm not too sure how viable it is. I think you can build an ore detector It's the detector components, isn't it? You can actually build them. So from this you could build a large grid ore detector on the ship, and Splitsy does a good job of showing you how you can do that. Basic setup of rotors, a small grid rotor, and add a large grid head, and then put a large ore detector on it. That might help you out. But for this run, and if you've been following like I have and you found cobalt and you're in a good place, we're going to convert this into a mining ship. So there's a few things we're going to need to add in order to make this a fully functional ship. First of all, I'm just going to remove these corners, just so we've got plenty of space to work with here. Make sure you don't take anything out that's structural to the ship. Now the landing gear, we're going to leave this one intact. It's attached to the O2 generator, and that's going to be our anchor and basically hold everything up. So if we remove the other ones for now, this one at the front is actually attached to the seat. So if we get rid of this, the ship will fall. Then it will lock onto the other one. Hopefully. Well, it's locked in at a bit of an angle, but it's still locked in. It's good enough. And then we're going to jump inside, and I'm basically just going to remove all these blocks that you see here. Now the reason you might want to do this is because this ship comes with a battery here, and this battery has quite a lot of charge, so we might as well use it. And it's a decent frame for a mining ship, and we can basically do whatever we want to it afterwards. But for now, we basically just want to make sure that we leave the structure intact. So the way we're going to lay this out is we're going to go get some interior plates and steel plates. I'm going to put a medium cargo container in the center here, so directly in line with the battery and the O2 generator. We want a small conveyor port, so you can see there's small conveyor ports and large conveyor ports. These large ones can move anything. The small ones can only move specific components, as well as ore, fuel, and all the rest of the stuff. So there are certain things that can't flow through the small grid conveyor port that you can see there on the side, whereas these big ones, they can move everything. Now this is important because if you're making a ship that needs to move components like a welder or what have you, you're better off using the large grid. Sorry, I keep saying large grid, but I just mean the large conveyor ports. For ore will move quite happily through the small conveyor ports, so we're going to put a small one on this side and a large one on this side. We're going to have a connector on the bottom, which is why we're setting it up like this, and then the cockpit and the drill off the front. So I'm going to place that like this, and then we're going to right click, add to build planner, as you can see here, and we're just going to get this built. So now we want to connect this to the cockpit because the drill's going to be at the front, and it's going to flow through the cockpit and into the medium cargo container. I want to minimize small conveyors as much as possible, so we don't get too confused with everything that's going on. But we will need a few here. So if we get the small conveyor group block, you will need interior plates to place these as well. So I'll just go grab a few of these. We're going to place one in the middle, and then one curved conveyor tube on the side. I'm going to put another one on this side, but you don't have to do that. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to use the cockpit block, which has got two small conveyor ports on the back. Now we need to research the cockpit, which is down here on the landing gear section. If you remember, we actually removed a few landing gears off this, so it should be pretty easy. Pull it up, put it in your build planner, withdraw the components, and then you can build it literally anywhere. It doesn't have to be attached to the grid, you can just drop it. Weld it up, and we've got new blocks. So the cockpit I'm using is the vanilla cockpit, it's non-DLC. As you can see, there are two conveyor ports on the back, which are going to line up with those conveyors that I've just made coming off that medium cargo container. First though, we're going to weld these up. So I'm going to right click on those and make the components. Now we're going to place the cockpit block. So as I just said, make sure the conveyors line up with what you've just placed. Place it down, and then a good old right click, add to build planner, and we're going to make these components. Next up, we're going to put a drill. So if you just find the drill, it's the small grid one. You can change between small and large grid. If you click on the block, then over here, this is the large grid option. It shows you the components required, and then this is the small grid option. So I'm going to go with small grid, and we're going to attach it. There's a conveyor port on the back there to the front conveyor port on the cockpit block. Then right click, and we're going to get it built. So now we've got the drill built, you can actually jump into the ship, and you can recharge your suit. But there are a few more things we need to do to make sure that this thing is flight worthy. So we need a gyroscope, which controls movement, and we also need thrusters in every direction. We're not going to put any downwards facing or upwards facing thrusters on this at the moment, because we're in a gravity well, and if you just press the down key, whatever that is on your ship, it will basically just cut the bottom thrust out and just let you drop. It is a good idea, sorry, to have that, because you might flip upside down in a tunnel or something could happen. But for now, I'm going to save some resources and not do that. And we're also going to get some atmospheric thrusters on this. So an easy place to put them, I'll just show you now, is if you just cut out these blocks like I'm showing you here. You'll get some steel plates. And it's also the best place, initially, just to put your thrusters. It doesn't really matter where you put the thrusters as long as they're not sticking too far out of the ship so that you don't bump them against a wall when you're mining and destroy them. It shouldn't really matter too much. So we're going to put the gyroscope in the middle here, and then we're going to get the atmospheric thrusters. I'm just going to use the default vanilla ones for now. I'm going to put them facing each angle outwards. Like so. And then we're going to go weld all this up. And congratulations, you now have a fully functional ship. So we're going to hop in the cockpit. You can unlock the landing gear by pressing P. We'll get further into that later on. Or you can find it in the control panel and click unlock. You can also disable auto lock. So auto lock will basically clamp onto anything it can get its mittens on. We're going to turn that off because I like to do it manually. And it functions much the same as the jetpack controls. You might need to turn the atmospheric thrusters which were attached to the ship on. If you click on this icon, it will show hidden blocks. Select them. You can select multiple blocks by holding shift and clicking. It'll select them in a row. Or you can control select as well. Turn those on, and then we can fly. You've got the same controls with the dampeners as the jetpack. And then, as mentioned, we've got all axis of thrust, except down, but it will just reduce the upwards thrust and let us drop. Now, there are a few more things we need to do. So, first of all, we need a connector on the bottom. So, I'm just going to let this hover, not too far above the ground, because I don't want to waste fuel. We're going to put a connector here. So, if we remove these blocks, and then we grab the connector block. We're going to place that just under this medium cargo container. I'm going to get rid of this landing gear as well. So this connector will allow us to dock to the base. We can dock to large grid connectors. We can transfer our ore out of the miner into the base, and it will also allow us to recharge the miner with the energy that we've got stored at the base. So if I jump into the pod now, we're just going to disable our dampeners to save some fuel, and then we're going to configure the toolbar. So if we press G, we can see all the blocks on the ship. If you go to block tools, right click the drill, that'll put it on the hotbar. It's very much similar to the hand drill. It's left click to mine ores and gather them, and then right click will create a much bigger dent in the voxels because we've got an actual ship drill now. Next up, we're going to configure a few other things as well. So if we open up the control panel, we gather all the thrusters which are up. So if you're sitting in a cockpit, it'll actually show you the direction of the thrusters, and we group them. I'm going to call these up thrusters. Save, that'll save as a group, and then I'm going to get all of the thrusters and then name it Atmo Thrust. You can name them whatever you like. So this is a group of all the thrusters on the ship. And if we open the G menu, go to groups, we go to Atmo Thrust on off. So now we can toggle all the thrusters on the ship. So if we want to turn the thrusters off, you can see the fans have stopped spinning. And we can turn them back on if we need to. So another trick we can do now that we've got a group of all the thrusters is if we find the backwards facing thruster, I'll just call this brake, and then on off, this can serve as cruise control. So if we turn that off now, while we're going forward. We will continue moving forward, but all of the other directions will provide thrust. So we can turn, I'm not pressing anything right now, we can point down to accelerate, point up to decelerate. And this will just save you some fuel when you're just cruising around. Remember to turn it back on though, otherwise it might get a bit messy. We're also going to open the G menu, and we're going to add the connector. So if you right click, it'll open up all the toggles. Switch lock. So now we can switch the connector lock for when we have a connector on the base. We can dock and undock. We're also going to create one last one for the ore detector on off. So we can turn this on and off as we're searching for ores. We'll turn it off as we're not doing it now. And that is basically a small mining ship. You can now use this to go and gather ore and bring back to the base. But to do that more efficiently, we're going to need to be able to dock to the base to actually recharge it and deposit the ores more efficiently. So we're going to be docking it over here, and we're going to quickly build a landing pad for this so that we can, as mentioned, dock, unload the ores and recharge the mining ship. So the first thing we're going to make sure we do is get some steel plates. And we're going to use these steel plates to connect the base to the wind turbine, so that we're not severing power to the base here. We're going to have the connector, probably there will do. Or we might move it one over actually. Pop it here. Large grid connector, and then we're going to pipe it up to the base via this cargo container. So we're going to run a conveyor line down, under, and connect it up. So for that we're going to use the drill. I'm going to right click, remove some of these voxels and connect it up with conveyors. And here we have a conveyor line. I do want to mention that if you don't really care about looks, or you're not really interested, you just want to make it as efficient as possible, you can literally just stick the connector on the top here directly to the cargo container and then dock the ship up there. I'm just doing this because eventually I want to build a hangar here and a little space for us to take care of the pod, so I'm going to route the pipes underground, and I'm just going to get these built now. So we've actually run out of iron, so we're going to take our new pod out for a spin. There's not too much to show you here, to be honest with you. Just keep an eye on your power levels in the bottom left. So as you can see, under full thrust, we've got 17 minutes of power, which is plenty. I'm going to use my cruise control. I'm going to fly over to where we've been mining iron, and I'm just going to show you how we do that with the ship. Again, it's not really too different to what we've been doing already. So I'm going to fly over to the hole I've already bored with the drill, and then I'm going to hold right click until we get to the ore. I'm going to turn the ore detector on so we've got a bit of visibility. And then we're just going to bore down. Try not to make it vertical, because under load, one atmospheric thruster won't do very well. It can't even lift us up. So you want to try and keep the ship flat as possible, so you can see the horizon marker there. Try and stay as level as possible. For now, later on we're going to upgrade it so it'll be a bit sort of easier for us to mine with. But for now, just try and keep it level. If you've dug at an angle to save some jetpack fuel, then you've done yourself a favour. And then we're going to left click on this ore to gather it. Now if you watch the bottom right, you'll see our weight start to increase. Keep an eye on this, and keep an eye on your upwards thrust as well. So you just give it a tap, you can see how fast we go up. Make sure you don't overload the miner. So as you can see, we're at 25, 26 tons. And then we're at 28 tons now, which seems to be pretty heavy. I'm just going to make some room for us to turn around in here by holding right click. And we're going to slowly make our way out. Keep in mind, once you are laden, you've got a lot more momentum, and if you bump into the wall, you're quite likely to destroy things, so just take it easy. If we open up the inventory as well, you can see we've gathered a lot more iron than we could ever do with the suit in one run. So I'm going to turn off the braking thruster, and we're going to cruise gently back to the base. Now I do want to emphasise that at the moment this is the only ship we have to get around, and it is also your mining ship, which is saving you a lot of time. So seriously, when it's under load, take it easy. Believe me, every single Space Engineers player has crashed one of their mining ships, if not their first mining ship. I know when I first started playing the game, I was playing multiplayer, and I took my buddy's mining ship out for a spin, and I pointed at an asteroid and flew towards it, and then didn't take into account braking distance or anything like that, because obviously I was new to the game, and I absolutely slammed into the side of the asteroid and had a very difficult time explaining to my friend why his miner now consisted of 3,000 separate pieces. So yeah, heed the warning and take it slowly, but it will save you a lot of time. Alright, so this is all hooked up now, so we can dock the miner, but first I'm going to quickly just add some steel blocks over the top there, so we've got a little bit of a landing area here. Thrusters will damage scaffolding, so do take that into account when you're building landing pads. We're going to take off and fly over. Before we dock, we're going to open the G menu, make sure we've got the switch lock selected on the hotbar. We're going to find the battery, and before we add the battery actually, we're going to just quickly change the name. Sometimes if you dock grids together and you set toggles on the toolbar for a block which has the same name on both grids, you'll accidentally flip them both. So battery miner, I'm going to do recharge on off. So this will basically select which mode the battery is going to be, whether it be in recharge mode where it's going to drain power from the base and fill up the battery power on the mining ship, or automatic, which will just distribute based on power load. So we're going to gently lock onto the connector. Once you're close enough, it'll sort of pull you to, and it'll turn yellow, which means you're ready to dock. And then we're going to use the switch lock key on the toolbar to lock the pod in place, and then we're going to put the battery on recharge. If we find the battery in the control panel, you can see here it'll be fully recharged in 4 minutes. And now you can fly around, gather ore to your heart's content, and you've got easy access to the mining ship, the storage unit, and you've got your full base here, along with 2 wind turbines. I recommend that if you haven't done so already, you go and find some ice. That's going to be my task off camera, is going to go find some ice so I can make sure that my bottles are refilled at the station that we have on the base. Next episode, we're going to look at upgrading the base a little bit, furthering our production capabilities, and also upgrading the miner too. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe to support the channel. Leave any questions you have in the comment section down below and I'll get back to you. Take care, everybody.